Okay, we're going to continue on with exercise 3, where we're going to start doing the exercises for the ABAP RESTful application programming model. And in exercise 3, we're going to explore the unmanaged scenario, which again, um, the the wrap framework allows the developer um, to focus on the business logic as opposed to the nuts and bolts of the framework. But in the unmanaged scenario, the developer is really responsible for the implementation of the create, update, and delete aspects of the application, as opposed to the managed scenario, which we'll look at in exercise 4, where a lot of the nuts and bolts or the CRUD operations are done for you by the framework. So let's go ahead and get started with exercise 3, and the first thing that we're going to do is create our business object views. So let's go ahead and get into the system. And in our package, let's say right-click New, ABAP repository object, and under core data services, say data definition, and then next. And let's go ahead and call this Z I travel U XXX, and we'll call this the travel view. Next and next. And we have several templates to choose from here. We're just going to use the define view template here. So we can say finish. And in the exercise, there are, this is broken down into several steps, but I'm going to copy and paste the majority of it here. First thing we have to do is update the SQL view name. So let's call it ZI Travel U XXX. And let's go ahead and update the define view statement. So we've put in the keyword root here and said select from the name of our table and an alias as travel. The next section here is where we're listing our composition and associations. So a composition relationship to the booking view, which I have not yet created, and then an association to agency, customer, and currency. And then we will put our columns in. So again, we're getting an error here because it's referencing this view, which we haven't created yet. So at this point, we'll just go ahead and save. And continuing on, I'm going to create 2 more views, one for booking and one for booking supplement. I'll just quickly do that. So booking view. And we'll go ahead and copy and paste that in here like this. Again, select from the booking table, alias as booking, association to parent travel, which again we just created but haven't activated yet, a composition to booking supplement, which we have yet to create, association to customer, carrier, and connection, and then we list out our columns here. So go ahead and save this one. And one more time, we'll create another view. We'll call this one ZI Booking Supplement U XXX Booking Supplement View. Next, finish. Copy and paste our code in here. So again, select from the booking supplement table with the alias booking supplement with an association to the parent booking, which again we have created but not yet activated. Association back to travel, which is not yet activated, and then an association to the supplement and supplement text views as well, and then the listing of our columns. Go ahead and save that. At this point, let's activate all three at the same time so that the dependencies can, um, so that the system can figure out the dependencies between the three. So let's select them all and right-click Activate. And hopefully, if I did everything right, all of them will be active with no problems. Yep, this looks good. Okay, continuing on, we're going to create our business object behavior definition as well as the implementation. So we can go ahead and close these. And let's right click on our data definition and say create new behavior definition. So here we can leave the description as it is. We're going to change the implementation type from managed to unmanaged. Again, we're exploring the unmanaged scenario here. Click next and finish. And then the system gives us this shell of a definition here. We're going to make changes here. First thing, this first line, this is basically saying we have the unmanaged implementation in the class and the name of this class here. We're going to actually separate our behavior implementation into three separate classes for each of the behaviors. So travel will have its own implementation class, booking will have its own, and the booking supplement will have its own. So let's go ahead and modify this definition to reflect that. So first things first, let's go ahead and change this first line. We'll change it to implementation unmanaged. And then for each one of these, we'll update with an alias. So alias travel, travel, and then implementation in class Z, BP, I, travel, U, XXX, unique. And in this case, the naming here of the class BP, it's what we refer to as a behavior pool. So that's why we use the BP there. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing for booking and booking supplement. So alias booking. And we'll just copy and paste that code in there. Booking. And same thing here. Alias booking supplement. Booking supplement. I think I did all that right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add a few things to our behavior definition. So first, we'll add a few field statements to the first definition for travel. So before the create, we'll add two field statements. So basically we're saying travel ID needs to be read only, and agency ID, customer ID, begin date and end date need to be flagged as mandatory. Okay. So after and then we have the create, update, and delete here. So after the delete, we're going to add a custom action here. So action set status booked. And then we can implement that custom action in our implementation. We're also going to add some mapping. So after this association here, we'll add in the mapping. And this association here is basically stating that we have an association to booking, where the creation of booking is dependent on the actual travel record. And then mapping here, this allows us to define the mapping of the columns between the view and the underlying table itself. So we can then use this within our implementation and the move corresponding statements. So it's kind of handy. Let's move down to the booking definition. Again, we'll add some field statements here, basically doing the same thing as described before. We're going to remove the create operation because, again, that's being handled by the association in the travel definition. And then we're going to add an association back to travel and another mapping definition here as well. So after this association to booking supplement, another association to travel, whoops, and then the mapping statement here. And then moving on to booking supplement, again, we'll add the field statements here. We're going to, once again, get rid of the create because that is going to be handled by the association from booking to booking supplement. Again, the create is handled here. And then after the delete statement, we'll go ahead and add in another association back to travel and another mapping for booking supplement. Okay, hopefully I've done everything correctly here. So we'll go ahead and save this. And just one more check. Looks good. Let's go ahead and activate this. Okay. So now that we have our behavior definition, which basically outlines what operations we will support in our application, we have to go ahead and implement these operations then, the create, update, and delete operations, as well as any custom actions. Okay, so from the behavior definition, we can right-click and say new behavior implementation. And we already said that for each one of these behaviors for travel booking and booking supplement, we're going to have a separate class for each one of those. So we'll go ahead and use the name for the first one, which was this here. So let's make it simple. We'll copy and paste it like so. Click next and finish. And then the framework actually puts a nice shell of the implementation here based on what you have in the definition. So where we have the create, update, and delete methods here, it puts those methods in here for us with the correct signature, and for example, for create travel, for delete travel, and for update travel. That's not to say that the names of these methods, create, delete, update, must be named that. They could be named something else. So, for example, in my implementation, I have all of these names slightly different. So instead of modifying what we have here, I'm just going to blow all of this away and copy in my implementation. So for this first one, we'll take it step by step. And you'll notice here that we are doing the implementation as local classes. So for this particular one, we'll have a class called LHC, Local Handler Class, Travel, in which it inherits from the framework class CL ABAP Behavior Handler. So you can see here my methods are slightly different: create travel, update travel, delete travel, read travel, so on and so forth. Okay. So then we can go ahead and start putting in the implementation of each one of those methods one by one. So let's do the create travel one. Go ahead and copy this in here. And just so that we can understand what's happening here, again, the framework provides us these methods, and the specific signatures that's passing in the actual travel data. So a creation record is coming in through this internal table. So we'll loop over that. And then we're calling I mentioned before that the way the unmanaged scenario works is that we're allowed to reuse existing assets. Um, so existing function modules that handle the create, update, and delete type functionality. Okay, so that's really where the unmanaged scenario shines, is being able to jack into existing function modules and class methods to do that type of processing. So here we're creating, or we're calling the function flight travel create. And what this is doing behind the scenes is actually writing into that transaction buffer that I talked about in the overview. So again, we're just writing to a global internal table inside this function group, and then later during the save process, we'll take that data from the buffer, the internal tables, and actually update the underlying database tables themselves in the save operation. So again, here we're just calling the function that actually writes to the buffer, and then handling some of the messaging that's being passed back to us. It's very similar to the update method, or the update travel method as well, where the data is being passed in to us. We're looping through it, calling the function module, and handling the messaging, right? Same with the delete. Let's go ahead and copy that in. Delete. Looping through the data here. It's being passed in, calling the function module. That's writing to our buffer and handling the messaging. Okay. Now we also have methods in here for reading data. So reading the travel data. So let's implement that. It's not copying very nicely. So read travel, and we're basically looking at the requested IDs, which ones do we want to read, and then calling the function module to do that read, right? Then we come to the method for our custom action. Let's go ahead and copy that in here. So set travel status was our custom action, and this is the implementation. So again, looping through the incoming data and updating or setting the status, setting the booking status for our travel record. Okay. CBA booking, another method we must implement. This is the create by association method for booking. So again, we define that a booking is created based on a travel record. So this is the method that's handling that. So again, looping through that data and calling the function module to update the application buffer, and then handling the updating of the travel record, right? And then handling the messaging. Continuing on, read booking, BA, read booking by association. So again, this is a way for us to read the booking based on the travel record. Okay, that's it for the handler class. We now need another local class called saver, which will be inheriting from the CL ABAP behavior saver class. This is the mechanism that we used for the save process. So we have local saver class, saver, right, with these methods. And we'll go ahead and put the implementation in here as well. And when we do this, you see that we're only really utilizing two of the methods here, the save and the cleanup. So again, I mentioned before during the CRUD operations that we're writing to this transaction buffer, and only during the save process does this function module actually take that data from the transactional buffer, the internal tables in the function group, and write those to the underlying database tables themselves. Okay, and then the cleanup here is basically cleaning out that buffer. Okay, so go ahead and save that. And if I did everything right, hopefully this activates for us. Yes, looks like it activated just fine. So that is our first behavior implementation, for this one for travel. Let's do it again for bookings and booking supplements. So we can go ahead and close that. And once again, we can come back to our definition and say, I'm going to go ahead and copy this real quick. We can come back to our definition and say new behavior implementation once again, and copy in the name of the class for booking, right? And click next and finish. And once again, it gives us a shell, which we're just going to blow away and override with our own. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all of this. Okay, copied that in there. So again, here we have methods for updating the booking, deleting the booking, reading the booking, and then our create by association for supplement, and then read supplement. And the implementations are pretty much the same as we've seen already, where we're calling functions, writing to the travel, writing to the application buffer, and then of course during the save process we'll write to the tables. So we'll go ahead and save that, and we'll create. Well, let's go ahead and activate it. And we'll create yet another one. So let's go back and get the name of it here. And right click and say create behavior implementation with this name, finish. Okay, and again, very similar, update booking supplement, delete booking supplement, read booking supplement. And then again, the method implementations are very similar to the others, where we're writing to this buffer and handling the messaging, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and save this and activate that. Okay, everything looks good here. Let's go ahead and close all of this. So now we're going to move on to creating our projection views, which is going to be a layer on top of our business object layer, which is going to then abstract our monolithic business object layer. So we're going to create specific projection views based on our needs for our different users. So one monolithic business object layer, but many projection layers on top. So think of it as a way of having different behavior definitions for a particular use case of your business object layer. Okay, so creating the projection views, we can go ahead and right click on the data definitions, say new data definition, and we'll give it a name, ZC Travel UXXX, and we'll call it Travel Projection View. Click Next, and Next. And this time we're going to choose Define Projection View. Okay, gives us a nice template. Click Finish. And you can see here that now it basically puts in the statement that we need where it says as projection on our data source. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and copy and paste the projection code here. So define root entity, root view entity ZC travel, which is a projection over top of our business object travel UXXX, and then these are the key fields that I want. I have some additional value help definitions in here as well. So very easy to pull in additional value help, especially in our Fiori preview, which we'll see later. And then, yeah, so we have the other columns here and then our public associations here. Okay, so we can go ahead and save that. And we're going to continue to create consumption views over top of our views. So new data definition, and this time we'll do one for booking. Booking. Booking projection view. Finish. And we'll go ahead and copy and paste. Very similar to the travel one, where I'm specifically defining what columns I want. Also adding in some additional value helps. Okay, we'll go ahead and save that. And we're going to create one more for booking supplement. Next and finish. And we're going to go ahead and copy and paste this as well. And go ahead and save this. All right. Now that we have created our consumption views and saved those, we'll go ahead and select these three and activate them all at the same time. Activate, and hopefully all three of them don't give us any problems. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so we have our business object layer, right? Our monolithic layer that has all of our columns. We now have a consumption view layer, which filters out some of those columns and only really presents what we want to that particular use case. The next thing we want to do is create metadata extensions, and what we use these for here is to enrich the data model. In this case, we're going to put all of our UI annotations into these metadata extensions so that we keep the UI separate from the UI definition separate here. Keeps things a little bit cleaner. So let's go ahead and create a metadata extension for this consumption view, the travel consumption view. So right click on, say, new metadata extension. And we'll use the same name as our view, travel MDE. And we'll go ahead and copy and paste this in here. And again, this has all of our UI annotations here. So what is basically what does the user interface look like when we go to preview this later on? Okay, go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and activate it as well. And let's create another one for booking. So for booking, new metadata extension, let's give it the same name, booking MDE. Next, finish. We'll copy and paste this code in here. Yes, that looks good. Save and activate. And one more time for the booking supplement. Booking supplement MDE. Finish. And we'll copy in the code and save it. and activate. Okay, so now we have our metadata extensions. Let's close all of this. Next section, we're going to create our behavior definition projections. So again, we already created a behavior definition for our business object layer. We've created our consumption views. Now we need to create a behavior definition um, projection for our consumption layer. So again, we want to filter um, certain operations based on the requirements for the application. So let's go ahead and select C Travel U and say new behavior definition. And because we're selecting, because we selected the consumption view and created a new behavior definition, it automatically puts this implementation type in here as projection. So it understands that we're trying to create a behavior definition for our behavior definition projection over top of a projection view. So we can go ahead and click next here and finish. And then we get this code here as our definition, and you can see here that we have each definition for travel, booking, and booking supplement. It looks very similar to our business object behavior definition, but here we could actually start commenting things out. Like, let's say that the consumer of this projection view, we don't want them to be able to delete. We could actually start commenting some of this stuff out, and then those operations would be hidden from the end user. We're going to leave this wide open right now, but you can experiment with some of this after the fact if you want. For right now, we're going to go ahead and add some aliases here. Travel, alias, booking, alias, booking, supplement. Yeah, that looks good. Go ahead and save and activate. No problems. Okay, now we have our projection behavior definition. So we're only exposing those operations that we want for that particular use case. So now we can go ahead and create our service definition and our service binding. So moving from the business object layer to the service layer. So now exposing this to either a UI or a web API. We start by creating our service definition, which is fairly easy. So let's go ahead and right click on the consumption view travel and say new service definition. Let's give it a name, SDC travel U XXX service definition for travel, and next and finish. And then it basically gives us the little bit of code that it takes to actually create this service here, define service, the name of our service, and we're saying to expose that consumption view. Let's go ahead and expand this a little bit to also expose both booking and booking supplement as well. So that's what I've done here. We can go ahead and save and activate. That looks good. Now we can right click on the service definition and say create new service binding. So at this point we're still protocol agnostic, and only when we actually create the service binding that we actually tie a protocol to it. So let's give it a name, ZUI C, travel U, XXX, service binding for travel. And you can see here, the binding type is OData v2 UI, or I can make it a web API. If I choose UI here, I get a nice Fiori preview, which we'll see in just a second. So let's go ahead and say next and finish. Okay, now we can go ahead and click the activate button, and this takes a couple seconds. Okay, now we can go ahead and select our travel entity and click this preview button here, and that opens up the browser where we can preview our application. I'll go ahead and log on here. Hopefully we've done everything right and we get our beautiful application preview where we have data. Very good. So you can see here we have columns for travel ID, agency, customer, starting date, end date, travel. And again, these column headings are coming from our data model where we've defined that in the CDS views. This set to booked, our create button and our delete buttons here. This is coming from the behavior definition. Right. So if I click on one of these travel records and it takes me into the details, you can see that I have my associated bookings tied to the travel record. And if I click on my bookings records, you can see the associated booking supplement records as well. So you can see how it's all tied together in our preview here. And the Fiori Elements preview gives us a nice idea of how our application behaves. Even the edit and delete and create buttons, these all work. And it's simply calling our implementations behind the scene. This is also a good way to debug your application as well. So that's it for creating your application using the ABAP RESTful application programming model unmanaged scenario. And we'll continue on in the next exercise. We'll basically do the same thing, but this time we'll use the managed scenario where the create, update, and delete operations are managed for you by the framework.